So you want to succeed in China starting in Hong Kong. This presentation gives you some tips on what you need to know and how to do that. And before we talk about the how, I think it's useful to talk about the why. Why Hong Kong? And having lived here many years, I reflected on this. I gave some thoughts to work I've done with the Hong Kong Development Council, work I've done with Invest Hong Kong, but really just thinking about my own business and my clients and why do they do business here in Hong Kong as a start for moving into China and the rest of Asia. And I've identified what I think are three main reasons. First of all is the environment. Second is the infrastructure, and third is the location. So in terms of environment, the culture of Hong Kong is a culture for business. You know, you may holiday in Thailand, the culture in Thailand is great for holiday, but the culture in Hong Kong, great for business. People work hard, you get fast results, they're eager to learn, and they want to help you. So that's really helpful. Second, there's lots of world-class experts. You need experts when you're bringing your business here to China, and they're well recognized to be living and working right here in Hong Kong. Lawyers, accountants, you may get sick. They have world-class doctors. They have consultants in all different areas, engineers. The experts are here, and you can find them through all the universities we have in Hong Kong. I also think the environment is fantastic because of the work-life balance. A lot of people look at Hong Kong on the media, and all they think are 7 million people living in a small space. They don't realize there's 286 islands. There's amazing hobbies. You can go sailing, you can go hiking, you can play, you can party. You have helpers looking after your families so that your family work life can also be balanced. So the environment is outstanding, and foreigners from all over the world say it's one of the best places in the world to live and work. So the environment, definitely a great place to start before spreading into China. Second, I would say, is the infrastructure. And there I'm talking about the legal structure, the tax structure, the financial arrangements with all the banks. You've got shipping, you've got a world-class airport. Everything works, and it works all the time. And that is not true in many parts of the world, as you know. But it works here in Hong Kong, and it works very, very well with large numbers of people. And third, in terms of location, obviously we're on the doorstep of China. And that's what you're interested in, that giant market with 1 billion people, great consumers. But think also that you're close to Southeast Asia. Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia are all big markets. You're not far away from India and the Middle East. And if you go north, you're close to Korea and Japan. Hong Kong is just ideally located in the center of all of these giant markets that you want to access. So there's lots of reasons why you might want to start in Hong Kong. But the number one reason that I would say why you want to start your business in Hong Kong is the Chinese culture is really different than what you know at home. And you think you're adventurous, you think you're cross-cultural, and you do well when you travel, but you don't really know how well you do until you try to succeed in Chinese culture. And the beauty of Hong Kong is it's been teaching foreigners how to succeed in Chinese culture for hundreds of years. Its unique history means that it's had an open door to foreigners from all over the world to come here and to learn Chinese culture from the bottom up. You can learn the language, you can meet the people, you can enjoy the food, and all of that, not only is it accessible, but Hong Kong people welcome you and laugh when you make cultural mistakes and help you learn what's important and how to succeed. So you don't get that as easily in China because they have less history welcoming foreigners. And here in Hong Kong, they have hundreds of years, and they like to do it. So for me, that would be a number one reason. Come, enjoy the food, love the people, and you'll learn a lot. So specifically then, how would you succeed? I've broken these into 12 tips. 12 tips on how to succeed in China, starting with Hong Kong. And we'll take them one by one. The first one, they're not in any particular order. I call it Hong Kong business tip number 1. And obviously, the order does start when you arrive. You have to network. So bring lots of money. I actually tell people to bring 6 to 12 months of cash to invest in order to network and meet people. You need to actually meet a lot of people, as many as you can, as quickly as you can. And when you get to know them, you want to build relationships, because relationships are very important in China. And as you get to know people, you can also introduce your value proposition. In my book on doing business in China, there's 2 books, Negotiation, Doing Business in Asia, which is really focused on China, and the Business Developers Playbook, which is really focused on the step-by-step, what do you need to do? And the first thing you'll see when you're developing relationships is I give you a number. I recommend 5 contacts a day. 5 contacts a day. That's 25 contacts a week. That's 100 contacts a month, 1,200 contacts a year. And you think, oh, Peter, that's way too many. How can I do that? But it's Hong Kong. People are here to do business. So meet 2 in the morning, have lunch with the 3rd one, 2 in the afternoon, and you've got 5. And if you go out at night, you've got a 6th. Obviously, you can't do 5 every day. Some days you'll focus entirely on doing 1, or maybe just doing the work on the 5 you met the day before. But it's good to have that number in your mind, 5 contacts a day, because if you get to the end of the week and you haven't met anybody, you know you're not going to be developing your business, and that's all starts with relationships. So think contacts, 5 contacts a day. When you're meeting them, you want to introduce your value proposition. And that's really, as you can see, I give you a template. Use the template. Think about your own company experience and the value that you've brought your clients. It's nothing more difficult than saying, for example, as a result of me, Peter, doing what? You have to describe, what did you do? For example, I help companies negotiate. When did you do that? This is a true story that you're relating to your clients, so you want to say, actually, when did you do it? Is it 100 years ago? Is it last year? Is it recent? The more recent it is, the more believable it will be to your target audience. Then, who was the audience of this example that you gave? How did they benefit? There you're putting in actual dollar numbers. And what did it lead to? What was the next step? So for example, as a result of my work, Peter Nixon, helping one of the commercial banks here in Hong Kong with bad debt collections during the recent crisis, the collections department, you know, they talk about taking a haircut, 15% collection on 100% debt, was able to raise their collections from 15% to 25%, leading to hundreds of millions of dollars more collected than they expected, simply because they learned how to negotiate and ask for more, to refuse the initial offer from the client. They negotiated, they got a better deal, and it led to them having more money to build their market, greater exposure for more clients after the downfall in the economy. So as a result of my helping them negotiate their distressed debts during the downturn in the economy, they collected hundreds of millions of dollars more, leading to more investment into the market where they were operating. So use the value proposition template to come up with your own examples for your own business, and have those ready on the tip of your tongue so that when you are networking and meeting clients, you're able to share those and attract their interest. Hong Kong business tip number 2, ask lots of questions. You're new to the market. You're new to the people. You need to know all about them. You want to know who are they, what do they do, who are their markets, who are their suppliers, how do they like their suppliers, how are their competitors. Ask personal questions. People like to spend more time on the personal questions here before jumping into business. Food is a very popular topic in Hong Kong, so ask them about their favorite restaurants and go to the restaurants with them and ask about favorite foods, invite them to choose and learn and ask. You'll see I have a simple questioning technique. I call it the mama technique. And I use actually a Matryoshka doll, which you know from being young, how fun it is to open the doll and you find another doll inside. You ask another question, you find another doll inside. And it's the same here in Hong Kong and China. The more questions you ask, the more you learn, wow, there's so many layers of reality in China. In China, you think you know what's going on until you spend more and more time here, ask more and more questions, and then you realize, oh, I just need to keep asking. How many questions should you ask? Actually, I recommend you never stop asking. But at some point, the people are going to be annoyed. It'll feel like an interrogation. So the mama technique that you can see in the notes together with this presentation helps you understand that you mirror what the person has said, and then you ask a nice open question on the same topic. So you're not interrogating on your interests, you're following up what they have said. So for example, say they're very interested in finding a new supplier for aluminum. Your mirror would be, oh, so you're interested in more aluminum suppliers. What is causing you to be interested in having more suppliers? And they will tell you. They may tell you the current supplier doesn't have enough volume. They may tell you the current price is not meeting their requirements. They may tell you that they're expanding in other parts of China and they need more Russian or CIS aluminum to come into the market for that new part of China. Whatever they tell you, you're going to be learning things you didn't know before. Don't stop there. Most people, remember, think of the Matryoshka doll. The fun ones have 5, maybe more little dolls inside. Keep asking about the same topic. Don't change topics. So you could say, oh, so you're interested in more supply for aluminum. What is your current supply arrangement? And they may tell you. And then you could ask a question further, deeper on the current supply arrangement. So ask lots of questions by mirroring and asking open questions on their interests and their topics. Hong Kong business tip number 3. You're going to meet a lot of people. This is a city where people are networking all the time. They want to meet you, they want to exchange business cards, and you know, everyone's happy to have friends, but here they want to have friends and do business. And while they're meeting you and you're meeting them, they also are qualifying you in terms of, are you somebody that they should follow up with, call tomorrow? And you need to be doing the same. I actually recommend that you classify your contacts. Are the people you're meeting potential clients? Are they suppliers? Are they people you might have in your network? Like they're not clients, they're not suppliers, but they're people you need to know. They may have studios that you could rent if you need them. They may have contacts that you could ask them to introduce because their contacts might know that they need your products and services. Perhaps they're family and friends. Perhaps they're participants, like I do a lot of workshops, so they come as participants. If I have 60 participants in the room, I don't know which of those are clients, but I know that the relationship started as a participant or as a viewer, an online viewer. So classify everybody you meet. Make sure you put them into your database, and then you can prioritize your time. The other aspect of qualifying your leads and your contact database is to recognize you can't follow up every lead. If you spend a week in Hong Kong and you meet 100 people, you're doing well, right? You're going to have a lot of leads. And what do you do on Saturday and Sunday? Do you follow up everything? You can't. So in this little bit of time you have to prioritize your leads. And as you can see also in the course notes, I recommend that you qualify your leads in 4 ways. And you could just do it numerically. So give 5 points to each of these 4 criteria. First criteria How well do you know them? Do you have a great relationship with them? Then give them 5 out of 5. Are you just meeting them for the first time? Give them 1 out of 5. But be honest, because if you think they're great friends and you've only just met them, that's not the way it works in China. In China, great relationships are people that have known each other for a long time and they know all about each other. So give your number accordingly to the relationship. Relationships matter. The stronger your relationship, the more likely that you will do business together. Second criteria, give points to the value of your competitiveness. How competitive is your product or service in terms of what your prospective client wants to buy? If you're more expensive, that doesn't really work, right? If they have a less expensive competitor, you're going to struggle. If you have better supply volume or free capacity, great, you're more competitive. Maybe you've got something that they need that others don't have in the market. Great, give yourself a higher score on competitiveness. Third criteria is what value can you bring them? And again, give yourself a number out of 5. If what you do brings them huge value, so say for example, you're supplying aluminum and you're able to bring them the aluminum at a good price, good quality, on the dates that they need it, in the location required, and they're able to build their products and get them to market and make huge money and capture their own market share, then you're really going to win. You're bringing great value. But if all you're bringing is a little incremental value or a little extra value compared to others, you have to be honest. And the fourth criteria is what value is this client to you? And some are great value. Some may bring you lots of money, so they're high value to you. Some may introduce lots of other clients, great value to you. Some might bring no value, they just give you headaches and a very small profit margin. So then you might want to lower them down. But don't only evaluate value in terms of money, because here in Hong Kong and China, networks are very important. So if working with them means you're going to work with all of their supply chain, that's a great value. So think about it beyond just the profitability of your current engagement. So classify your contacts, qualify your leads, and that'll allow you to prioritize your time. Very, very important. Hong Kong business tip number 4 is to follow up. You might be surprised that the number one problem of service and product suppliers in Hong Kong, and I think it's true globally, is that they don't do what they promise to do. And so don't be one of those types of suppliers. If you promise to do something, and you meet somebody over dinner or over drinks in the evening, and you've made a note, and they'll remember, and you follow up, you're going to stand above the competition because they forget. Be the one who remembers and who follows up. Fulfill your promises. Say thank you. Most people don't say thank you. But when you say thank you, you stay in touch. And it's a great way to remind them that you're out there and that you matter and that they matter to you. And I have this thing I call follow-up relationship threads to stay in touch. When you call people and you're just trying to sell, they are busy and they don't want to hear from you. But if you call them and say, hey, I know you love sailing and I just saw a deal on a sailboat, they're going to want to talk to you. Relationship threads are those things that people love to do, their hobbies, their passions, and you need to know those. So some of the questions you want to ask when you're talking to your prospective clients is, what do they love to do? What is their buzz in life? And lots of people, it's some form of hobby, some form of travel, food, pets, adventure. A lot of people are very passionate about their work. So what is it about their work that they're really passionate about? And then when you find something related to those passions, follow up and use that opportunity, that relationship thread, to stay in touch. The more threads, the stronger your relationship. So find out what those threads are, keep threading them, keep building them, and you're going to have a strong relationship. And through those strong relationships, business will come. So here's a little bit of homework for you. Take a moment to write down who are the most important people that bring you business in your current situation, and try to identify 3 relationship threads for each of those people. So quite simple, just make a list. 80-20, 80% of your business comes from 20% of your customers. So who are those 20%, and who are the people in those companies that bring you the business, your main client relationships? Once you've got the names of the people, identify, if you can, 3 things that they're really passionate about, their relationship threads. And that will tell you how successful you are right now at really knowing your customers, because the better you know them, the better you can do business. And maybe it's okay where you are now doing business to not know those things. But here in China, you need to know those things, because relationships matter, not just in general, but specifically, the stronger you know each other, the more you're going to do business. Okay, Hong Kong business tip number 5 is an interesting one. It's this one. It's have compassion for the customer that you are trying to win over as a client. Because they may need you because of something they've done wrong. They may be the mistake for which the company needs your help. Have compassion. They don't want to feel bad about it. They don't want to be exposed to that fact. They may also benefit from your compassion because even though they'd like to work with you, they don't have any influence at the board level to get the budgets to buy your product and service. And if they sense that you have compassion about the fact they don't have that influence, they'll work with you to try to get the influence they need to get the budget. Think also about their, have compassion for them, because maybe they prefer a competitor, one of your competitors, who's actually giving them a worse product or service. So that's bad for them, but if you have compassion for them, they're not going to feel uncomfortable about telling you about that. And when they tell you about that, then you're going to win, because then you'll know more on how you can help them. And the last element of having compassion, they may be really resistant to change. They may fear change. Maybe they've had an example where they introduced a supplier before and it didn't work out and they got criticized for it. And so they don't want to introduce new suppliers ever again, because their boss will get angry with them. So have compassion. If you sense they fear change, have compassion. And that compassion will open the door for greater dialogue and understanding their needs and wants to go forward. Hong Kong business tip number 6 is that sales dialogues, or all of these networking conversations you're going to have in the office, in their office, in restaurants, in bars, on the street, in the subway, wherever they take place, think of them as learning opportunities. They're going to be learning about you, and you're going to learn about them. Don't assume they understand what you're talking about. Don't assume they understand your value proposition. Don't even assume that they think they have to do anything. Maybe the status quo is quite fine for them. Likewise, don't assume that you know what's going on. You may think that you can bring value. You may think you know them, but it's always a learning dialogue. Think about, again, the Matryoshka doll, layers of the onion. The more questions you ask, the more you learn, the more you're going to understand what's really going on. And once you really understand what's going on, and some people have told me it can take 3 years before you really know what's going on here in Hong Kong and China. You can do that faster, but it does take time, because the relationships take time to build up. But once you know what's really going on, then you will become very successful in Hong Kong and China. Hong Kong business tip number 7 is to know your competitors. And anyone who's played sports understands, in team sports you have to understand not only to be the best at your own game, but to understand your competitor's game very well. And that's especially true here in Hong Kong and China. So what do you want to know? You want to know what is their value proposition. You want to know what is their price, which is very difficult. Some cultures find it hard to ask about price. Hong Kong culture loves to talk about price. Here in Hong Kong, we know prices of everything. We know what people get paid. We know what they paid for their house. We know what they're paying for their rent. You know, it's part of the culture. But in Canada, where I come from, people don't like to talk about price. They think it's inappropriate. But we know in business, if you know all about prices, especially of your competitors, you're going to be more successful. Not just price, you want to know their cost base. Some competitors here in Hong Kong have been here forever, and their cost base is a lot cheaper. Especially if you move into China, you may be competing with state-owned enterprises, and their cost base can be significantly cheaper because of infrastructure arrangements that they have been given, which can also be true here in Hong Kong, where real estate's #1 cost, and your competitor may be part of a large real estate group or family-owned group where their real estate costs are not like yours. So think about that. Think about their relations. How much do your competitors know your target audience? If they went to school together, have grown up together, are married to each other, you know that's a very strong relationship. And even if you have a better value proposition, you're going to struggle to actually displace that competitor. Think about the people who works for them. Are they good? Are they bad? Are they new? Do they turn over often? Have they been there forever? Do they know about the tech changes that are affecting the industry? Think about their strategy. What's their competitor strategy? Do they want to follow you into China? Do they want to follow you back to Russia and the CIS? You know, those are also important questions. And what are their strengths and what are their weaknesses? The more you know your competitors, the more it shows that you are actually a very strong sales-oriented organization. And if you're moving into Hong Kong and China, you have to be very good at sales. And being very good at sales includes knowing all about your competitors. Hong Kong business tip #8. Explain how your pricing works and how to save money and be prepared to negotiate. So here's a trick. I told you previously that Hong Kong people love to know the prices about everything. And some cultures are very protective of price. I have found the best way to succeed is to actually explain the way you build up your cost. The more they understand how different cost components come together to build the final price, the more they can pull that apart in order to get the best deal. And they want to save money. So if you can help them learn how to save money based on your cost structure, they're going to feel good about that. And they're going to want to negotiate. So how do you win in the negotiation? Obviously, you teach the structure, you build the price that you're sharing with them. It's not like you're telling a not true story, but you're explaining, for example, if your cost base includes a big component for personnel, your personnel cost that you quote can be a bigger number. You could do the full cost number as opposed to what you actually pay them. Or if you save on bonuses or they're long-term people, or you bring them in part-time from Russian CIS states, then that's a saving that's private to you. You don't have to share everything. You're sharing the structure of your cost base. And then negotiate. People here want to negotiate. I know people at home, you're used to people negotiating, but everyone around the world says the best negotiators are right here. And so very quickly, you can read all about negotiating in Asia in my book, but I've identified 5 things that people here are really good at when they negotiate. They're good at talking to you and understanding all of your cost base. So you want to be good at that as well. They're good at using tactics. Most of us only use 5 or 6 tactics. And if I watch you for some short time or I talk to you online, I could guess your tactics by guessing your style. And then I can prepare my counter tactics. So be able to learn and use more tactics. It throws off the competition. and the other side. Be very good at managing information. There's a lot of things that go through these industrial and commercial negotiations. As you know, it's not just the contractual, the legal, the relationship issues, the environmental issues, the political issues. There's lots of things all happening at the same time. So be good at managing all of that information. Be good at understanding people. You have to understand them culturally, but understand them also in terms of their motivational styles. That's important. And finally, think about the situation you're in. Star negotiators are very good at whatever the situation is. And if you want to come to Hong Kong and practice, just go to the fresh market and practice buying your vegetables and your fish at the best possible price. And you'll start to understand what we talk about when people are very good at negotiating. Hong Kong business tip number 9 is related to this whole concept of face. And you hear a lot about Chinese face and saving face, which is really not, it's the importance of not pointing out that people have made mistakes. But that's like junior level. Senior level is understanding the importance of giving face. And so Hong Kong business tip number 9 is when you win business, remember to give face to the clients you work with and to the other partners in your supply chain. Celebrate together. Make it a collective win. Help them recognize that they've done a great job to help you do a great job to win the contract. And that will bring you a lot of positive feedback from them and a willingness to work more. It'll allow you to have content to go viral on the internet, to advertise your successes, because when you're new to Hong Kong and China, you're going to have to advertise those early wins to win more business. And how you do that is important. So consider not just saving face by not pointing out mistakes, but giving face, which means advertising the good things that people do. Hong Kong business tip number 10 is one close to my heart. We're recording this in the midst of coronavirus, and business is in a deep slump in Hong Kong. And since I've been here, I think this is my 6th market slump that I've worked through with my business in Hong Kong. And I've learned that every time it dips, it goes zooming up again afterwards. And this, we're not sure if it will be a strong climb again, but we do know that the market is up and down on a regular basis in Hong Kong. It's fun to work here, it's exhilarating, but it's like a roller coaster. One day you're up, one day you're down. And hence the need to stay patient and enjoy the ride. So Hong Kong business tip number 10 is to keep your costs as low as possible. Because you may think, oh great, I'm making a lot of money. And you go spend all your money on all those beautiful real estate investments and luxury yachts and holidays in Thailand and beautiful clothes and restaurants and parties in the evening. But believe me, it comes to an end. And when it comes to an end, you're going to wish that you had have saved a lot more of that money. So save your money, manage your cost base by increasing your capacity a little bit slower than the demand. And if your capacity is increasing a little slower than demand, you're going to have this little gap, which you have to manage very carefully. And that's the quality gap. Because if your capacity is below demand, your clients may complain that things are too late or not coming on time or at their level of quality. So work hard, work 24/7 to reduce that quality gap while you still keep costs low and you grow the capacity of the business as the base volume of your business grows here in Hong Kong and China. Very important. From an accountant, believe me, it's important. Hong Kong business tip number 11 is to be alert to changes by continuously talking to all the people in your network. Things change fast in Hong Kong. They change, I've worked in maybe 60 countries around the world. I haven't found any markets that change faster than Hong Kong. The coronavirus was announced, for example, a month ago. We're only 4 weeks into the coronavirus and business is flat. It went from a very busy January to a very slow February. Things go fast here. And expect the upside to go fast as well. But to know what's going on, not just economic changes, but supply changes, customer changes, mergers and acquisitions. All of these things are happening all the time in Hong Kong. And as a city that is networking and out there doing business 24/7, if you're out there talking to people, you're going to know what's going on. But if you get busy or you don't like to be out there networking all the time, you won't know what's going on. And if you don't know, if you're not as up to date as your competitors, they will get an edge on you and you'll fall behind. So it's very important. Be alert to changes through that continuous dialogue with your key contacts. The last of the key tips is number 12, which is maybe not what you're planning, but it certainly wasn't when I arrived here all those years ago. I was not planning to stay forever. I thought I'd stay for a while, tour Asia as I had toured Europe, and return to Canada with my family. But all these years later, I realized that's the wrong strategy. When you land in Hong Kong, you should plan to stay forever. And you might think, oh, that's not my plan. But here's the point. Chinese culture rewards longevity, loyalty, and relationships. And if you stay long term, it demonstrates your longevity, your loyalty, and you'll have great relationships. And every company that came for a short time and left when the going got tough, not only didn't get the business, but they got punished if they wanted to come back later. So don't come, have a great time, and then leave and come back and think that the clients are going to welcome you with open arms. That's not the way it works. Stay here, work with the local culture, work with your client base. When the going gets tough, stay here. You don't personally have to stay here, but you got to keep your company here and keep people on the ground so that the relationship continues. Very, very important. In summary then, invest your money, network, ask lots of questions, prioritize your time, follow up, be compassionate, always be learning through those sales dialogues. Be a fierce competitor, know all you can about your competition, negotiate, give face, manage your cost base, be alert to change, and think long term. You want to plan, connect, dialogue, record, and follow up. All the important steps in dialogue selling. Some of you will have a chance to see my book, The Business Developer Playbook. We're looking to have it translated into Russian. The book itself is divided into two parts. The first part is the relationship selling principles, and I've shared some of those. For example, 5 contacts a day is one of the suggested principles of people who are good at business development. But there's a sales framework in the book that I also use. I describe it as the DNA, and a DNA double helix has both the buyer side and the seller side. So the buyer and the seller. There's 2 sides of the table in this dialogue selling model. And there's 5 steps. First is to plan your dialogue, and then to connect, and then to have the dialogue, and then to record what you've learned, and then follow up. Very simple. Plan, connect, dialogue, record, follow up. But culturally, it's important to think about how would you do that in Hong Kong and China as compared to where what you're used to at home. In terms of planning, that's probably the one that's most similar culturally to what you might expect at home. Obviously you're planning who you're going to meet, what you're going to talk about, where you're going to meet them, how long you're going to spend together, what your expectations are in those conversations. Now, some of that is cultural, but I'll get to those aspects more now. Because the second step is how do you connect with these target customers that you're wanting to do business with. The connection is quite simple. In another recording, we've discussed relationship threads and the importance of asking questions. But just making that connection is important. And you know, Hong Kong Chinese and Chinese in general love face-to-face connection. But they'll also require some introduction. You know, cold calling and saying, would you like to meet, is not usually the way it works unless they are a supplier. But if they're a prospective client of yours, they're not going to be available. You probably won't even get their number, or you won't get through their secretary if you want to meet them. So how do you meet them? You need to network and meet them socially or be introduced to them. So when you're networking, you're also asking for introductions. Do you know, for example, somebody in company X that I could talk to about what I do? And you should already know who it is you want to talk to. So you could ask your network, do you know anybody who knows Olga? Because I want to talk to Olga about my service. And that'll allow you then to follow your threads and your relationship threads through your network to lead and open the door to the person you want to connect with. When you're connecting, don't go straight to business. Remember, people like to talk about relationships, so keep it social. Talk about your history in Hong Kong, your interest to be in Hong Kong, their history in Hong Kong, their personal interests. And at some point in the conversation, after a lot longer than you may be expecting, they will probably ask you to talk about your business. But recognize they're only asking you to talk about your business not because they really want to do business with you. They want to qualify whether they should introduce you to somebody in their organization that you could follow up with. So your connections, you follow your connections to connect with the key decision makers so that they can hear enough from you that they will connect you with the people that they follow up on their behalf in their organization. So this whole connecting business is kind of complicated, I know, but unlike in some markets where you can just call up and go straight in and have a meeting, that's not the way it works here. You need to dance around, and very often you may dance around forever and never meet the decision makers because they don't want to meet you. They're too busy with their own lives. But once you've connected, then you need to engage in dialogue and recognize the dialogue itself culturally. I talked a little bit about the importance of keeping it personal first and business later. You should also understand in the dialogue itself, where you ask lots of questions, the culture here in Hong Kong and China will not always want to be asked a lot of questions. And so the dialogue may have a lot more to do with doing things together as opposed to sitting and interviewing each other and trying to understand each other that way. So be prepared, for example, to go and have a meal, nice round table in a Chinese restaurant. Be prepared to meet lots of their network at the same time as you introduce your people. Be prepared to go out after dinner. Be prepared for not having the late nights that you may have been used to doing business development in some markets, because here in China, people will want to stop drinking and go home because tomorrow's another busy day. Be prepared for having dialogue in completely unexpected environments. Because here in Hong Kong and China, they're not going to wait for the perfect meeting room. They'll be very happy to talk to you on the factory floor, in transit on the way to work, in the taxi or in the limousine on the way to their office. Use every opportunity, especially the less formal the environment, the more you're going to learn about each other through dialogue. And then make your records, follow up. When you're actually making records, culturally, you want to mark down not just the business aspects, but keep a note in whatever format, digital or paper, or however you keep track of your notes on key relationships. Mark down personal things. What are their hobbies? Who do they know? Who introduced you to them? What is the chain of connection? Try to ask questions that will reveal more of their background. Have they visited your country? Have they friends or any knowledge of your suppliers? Anybody else in the organization? Where did they go to university? What about their married relationships? You know, a lot of professional couples in Hong Kong run multiple businesses. So are there other aspects in those relationships that you need to know? You want to write and keep note as much of this as possible, because you'll be sharing this with your team, and they'll also want to know these things. And if you meet a lot of people, and you typically meet a lot of people all at the same time, if you don't take time to make notes, you'll lose track of some of those key details. And then follow up. Follow up, follow up, follow up. I have said previously, most people don't follow up. They don't do what they promise to do. So be the one who does what they promise to do. But in terms of culture, how do you follow up? The personal touches here are very important, and it's something that I have seen Russian companies come to Hong Kong and learn to do really well. For example, they may run a client appreciation night where they have learned it's very important to welcome them with a nice welcome booth, you know, maybe flowers for the VIPs, drinks, some hors d'oeuvres. Also then you'll have some guest speakers, but you'll invite also the clients to stand up and share experience. You'll purposely make introductions so they see value in coming to your events where they can connect with other people, that you facilitate the introductions. So you become like an important bridge in their own business development structure. Follow up by giving them takeaways, something about you that they can follow up. And then you go and meet them after the event, and you can thank them again in a personal way and in a corporate way for doing business together and coming. So cross-culturally, there's a lot to learn. There's some interesting books that have been written in terms of being successful cross-culturally. But in my experience, the way you learn is you make a lot of mistakes. For example, I'll give you an example. I do a lot of work with a leadership assessment which identifies people's motivations. And it classifies people as being either focused on results, relationships, or rationale. And we're a mixture of all three. But we use colors. Those who are pushing for results are red. Those who are pushing on the rationale are more green. And those who are pushing more about the relationships are more blue. So we have red, green, and blue. And to have fun, I invite people to try to network and dialogue wearing different color hats, different dialects. So how would you say it in a more results-oriented way? How would you say it in a more rational, thoughtful, process, logical-oriented way? Or how would you say what you're trying to get across in a more relationship way? And to have some fun with this, I was working with a Chinese group where I'd put on the different colored hats. So if I put on a red hat, they had to speak to me in a red, results-oriented way. If I put on a blue hat, they had to speak to me in a more relational, friendly, warm, collaborative way. When I put on my green hat, the whole audience starts laughing. I'm thinking, why are they laughing? I'm wearing a green hat. It's because in Chinese culture, if you put on a green hat, they believe somebody is sleeping with your wife. And I didn't know that. And they all knew that. And that's what it is to learn about culture. It's, I like to define it as a continuous play of these embarrassing situations where you have to learn to laugh at yourself. You will make mistakes, no question about it. But if you learn to laugh at yourself, you'll learn the culture, and you'll move forward, and they'll all remind you in the future, and you'll strengthen the relationship as a result. So don't wear a green hat when you come to China.